Yes, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good, yourself.
Fantastic. It's good to see you. I last saw you during COVID, ne?
Yeah, it was during COVID.
During
yes.
COVID, because we did this high impact leadership program, because this is how we do. Like we were supposed to stop because everybody was not working, and the world was not working literally. But we continued. We got you guys online.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing some of our audience here talking about living half day. It was half day then because we got you guys online. But welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be here and to come share my story and journey.
Fantastic.
Since we last met, yes.
Yeah. So let's start it from the beginning a little bit, right? Just because there might be people that don't know you here. Who is Golden Mashego in a nutshell, if you were to share?
In a nutshell, Golden Mashego, I'm an artist, I'm a creator. But at first, that's not what I studied for.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm a mining engineer. I studied mining engineering in UJ long ago, but I couldn't get practical in service. And then I moved from one mine to the next. At some point, I got something at Lone Mill to work. And then the strike happened. There was a disruption of strikes there. Then I lost the opportunity in Lone Mill. And then I found myself back at home. And growing up, we used to do pottery at home as a family business. So I was there staring at the available machine, gathering dust, and I was like, but I have the skills to do these things.
Yes.
And then took the first roller wheel out and started creating pottery and started selling it, going to the clients that we used to service and say, hi guys, we are now working, can we do something with you? And the clientele grew. Before I knew, I had forgotten that I even studied mining engineering because I found myself in a space where I was happy. And believe me, I went into mining engineering because it pays.
Yeah.
So it was not out of love driven.
Okay.
It was just out of, I qualify for the course.
Yeah.
And it pays. So I had went for that. But a few years down the line, I realized that actually I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a creator. And that was matters.
Yeah.
And either way, had I stayed in mining, I would have derived and went into business. So I wouldn't have stayed long.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. So I'm actually hearing here something. I was fired at one university when I said this, but because of this program, I found that leaders are born. But you're born for something, right? And you discovered it quite early. But most of the time we don't know. So it sounds like you are that story, right? That story was essentially saying, I was going to do mining engineering because circumstances allowed me to do that. But did the circumstance allow? It looks like not really. It was you were redirected anyway in that instance. So that's always fascinating. I'm wondering how many people in our audience have had those kinds of spaces or situations where they are redirected, but they are not paying attention. It looks like you were paying attention.
Yes, because it's more like a calling when it happens. People can say it's crazy, but it's as clear as a voice saying, move here, you're not in the right place. And if you don't listen to the voice, you're going to be frustrated. You will end up being in depression because you are in a space where you're trying to make it work, but that's not your space. So you are playing a left side of the ball, but you are right-legged, which is quite difficult. Everybody kicks the balls easier. But you find it so difficult to kick the ball because you are in the wrong side of the leg.
You're trying to also look like somebody else.
So the sooner you realize, actually, I'm far best on the right side, and you communicate with the people around. It's actually self-actualization, realizing what are you strong on, and how can you capitalize on that to make a living out of it. And it becomes easier once you do that. Even the effort comes so smooth.
It's seamless.
It's seamless.
So let's talk about your business for a moment. So what do you do now really exactly? So I had pottery, but what do you do?
What I do now, I'm an entrepreneur. I do business. That's what I do in my life now because I've got several businesses in different sectors. So we've got business in the art, we've got business in food, we've got business in logistic. So as I say, I'm an entrepreneur because if I say I'm only a crafter, meanwhile I'm doing the logistic business and the food business. So we've got the creative side of the business, which is the ceramics, where we craft pottery, we craft plates, ceramics, cutlery, for the tourism industry precisely. And then during COVID-19, actually, when we met, everything has frozen. And you know, the art sector, it's seasonal sometimes. And during COVID-19 was so deeply impacted. We find ourselves sitting at home with the floor. And then we decided, let's just go into food, because at that time, all government department was pushing for people to start food companies so that people can eat, because big factories have closed down. Then they realized the importance of grassroots level businesses. And then we moved into business. We bought the first, we took the whole savings that we had. Then we bought the first double oven and a proven. Then we started baking bread. And we supply the community, and we bake scones, then we grew from that level. And it was a good move that we took to survive the impact which was on one industry to the next. And we maintained that business going on. And the money that we took from that company into the other company, we were able to return the investment back into the other company, which was good. And then we moved from there, that one, because at the very same time as well, there was a need for digital things. Everybody was moving into the digital space.
And because of the distancing.
The distancing,
and all those things. So
then we started selling online.
It kind of triggered that we now also can distance but still be effective. Okay.
So that's when we moved into an online store. We launched our first website where we were selling the ceramics product and art stuff. Then we got a big break in Kruger National Park, because the park was functioning, but on a certain level, I think they were allowing 10 people within the premises and whatever. So, but there was nothing exciting for people to be in the premises and just go see animals and come back. So we went in, we proposed the online store, they liked it. Then we started selling product in the Kruger National Park through our online store. And we made a lot of sales. And then we said with the team, as you said, strategy. You need strategy on things. Because sometimes you ride on a wave when it comes to business, and it's just a trend. And when you are enjoying the trend and then everything ends, it was just a seasonal business. And so we needed a strategy to figure out what can we make out of this? How can we make this work? How can we make this big? Then we said with the team, and we decided, why don't we just open the online store for other creators to come sell into our store? So that when somebody goes into the store, there is a diversity of products that are there. And our unique selling point at that time is that we sell authentically handmade craft that are made within the community. It's not things that are imported into the community. So, and a lot of tourists, they like that. When they come to South Africa, they want to see South African made product. Because we've got a lot of art product, wooden product, but some of them, they come up in Africa.
From Mozambique.
From Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and they come into our space. And even when you sell it to a tourist, you have no attachment to it. But the craft that we sell, it has meaning to us. And because some of the people that craft this thing, they take it from the culture they come from. So it influenced by different tribes that we live in. Like the Ndebele people, they have the specific design which they craft different things on. And once you sell that on such a product, tourists, they love that, because there's a unique story behind it. When you are in the art space, people don't just buy objects, they buy the story behind. What's this product about? How did it come about? So we opened the online store for people to sell in, and a lot of people were selling through the online store, and we're taking a commission from their sales and giving back the money they charge. And it worked well. And then we decided, well, let's just create a separate company now that market product, because there's the difference of making product and selling product. And we find ourselves doing well in the selling of products. I was like, let's divide the thing so that we know if the crafting of things is not working. But if it's a pool of everything, you don't know if the other side is struggling. So we decided to separate.
So I'm going to pause you there for a few minutes, right? I want to go a few steps back. Because just to play back, I'm hearing and noticing that you're continuously responding to what the world is giving, and then responding to it, and then moving with it. Because when you started this conversation, I'm an artist, I'm a creative. But it doesn't sound like you limited yourself to, well, I create. There's a redefinition or a re-identification of the creation or the creating in this instance. Yeah?
Yeah.
But didn't that make you feel a bit isolated from being a creator?
Actually, it did not. Actually, it was my strength.
Okay.
Yeah, so being a creator was a uniqueness about me. But I had to understand that as I am a creator, there are sister sectors that we work parallel to. For example, if you are an artist and you sing, there are sister industries that support you. You need a mic, you need a DJ, and sometimes you go into a wedding where they need system, they need cameras, they need decoration. So the first thing is that you've got platform that people comes to you looking for a singer in a wedding.
Yeah.
But look at other sister sectors that you can tap into so that you maximize on the profit that you get.
Yeah. So essentially then look at your business as a whole as opposed to this one thing that I am in this instance.
Yes.
That's something else.
Yes.
Now, the other thing you spoke about, I think, during COVID and all of the turning and then doing the food and then moving from bakery and then into online store and then moving from online store, you then transitioning. And how many are you guys?
There's so many of us. So the first company that we opened was a cooperative.
Okay.
And so so the first one was a closed cooperative. So it was 5 of us as directors and members, immediate member of the cooperative. And we had come together because we're long-time friends, and some of the guys had graduated, and we find ourselves at home at the same time. We're like, we are here. We felt we were wasted because we were doing nothing. So I lobbied them into the creative industry because most of them, they did not know anything about ceramics. So I brought them through. I taught them how to create different products. And we also tap into the skills that they have. Some of them were administrators. Some of them were financial managers. So we took them into position where they felt comfortable in. Hence I said at first that you need to communicate with the group that I'm right-hand-legged. I feel better playing on the right hand side. So we started positioning ourselves.
So I think on the program, because we'll talk about you being on the program, on the program we talk about the SCAP, right? So you essentially then know your SCAP, because being right-legged or being left-legged is essentially a metaphor for, look, here are my skills. Here is what I know for sure. Here is what I value and hold dear. Here's what I'm passionate about. Here's what motivates me and gets me out of bed at night. And this is the type of person I am, right? So once you start understanding that, you kind of negotiate that with everybody and kind of find out who the others are. Before we move on, because I want to go back to where I paused you, right? You talked about, and I liked that, because whenever we talk about marketing, people think you market things. You market a ceramic dish, you market a play, you market a theater production. But people don't buy that, I think you said. People buy the story behind it. Where do you find the stories?
There's always a story in anyone. I think I've mentioned to you that I've also wrote a book which is called The Thought of Becoming. So in everything, before you do everything, it comes into your mind as a thought. So I can't just stand up and walk out. Something tells me that my body needs to go and relieve itself, and it pops in as a thought first. And then now I start entertaining it. And then now I start to think, what do I need to do? Do I just stand up and leave and everybody looks at me weirdly? Or do I negotiate my way around and tell everybody that actually nature is calling, I'll be back? Or leave everybody with a task to do, then I go out. So there's always a story into the final goal of where you end up in. Like for example, as myself, I started in mining and now I'm in the creative industry. So there is always a story. For example, yesterday I was here when everybody was introducing their businesses. And I think you kept on asking a guy who was a photographer
Yes.
whether they do it for commercial or they do it
pleasure,
for
yeah.
pleasure or to keep this product.
Yeah.
The reality is that there's two kinds of photographers.
Yes.
The other one captures memories.
Yes.
We call it commercial, but what you do, you capture memories.
Yes.
Somebody says, I have a wedding, come capture my memories.
Yes.
You're not going there with effect and everything. You're capturing their own memories.
Yes.
And they pay you for service.
And that's the product that they are buying. It's
That's
not
the product,
photograph.
yeah. It's not the photo, yeah.
It's the stuff behind the photograph. Okay.
Yeah,
carry
so
on.
they actually pay for you to capture the memories. But there's photographs that, like in the wild space,
Yeah,
in
Kruger National
in
Park, for
tourism,
example, yeah.
people come in and capture animals, the creativeness of it. And it's based on the resolution of the cameras they use to capture such a beautiful flow of a river with a hippo there or a crocodile there.
Yes.
And they sell that particular product at a very high value. It goes even up to 12,000 a
Yeah,
piece.
yeah.
And they auction it in different spaces.
Yeah.
Sometimes they even do open private session where people come in and they auction this product, they buy it. And at that level, it's no longer a picture they are buying.
Yeah.
They are actually buying an asset.
Yeah.
Because now it's a photography that's going to be on a wall and be mounted in a property. And it automatically increases the value of the house.
Yeah.
So they understand at that time that they're no longer just buying a picture.
Yeah.
It's not a wedding photography. It's a picture that once it goes into their house, if their house was 1.1 million, provided that they brought the effect into the house, then the value of the house peaks higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things I was asking some of the participants on the program at some point was, okay, and I think you're speaking to it here, because how will I know how the customer is valuing this thing? How will I know that for them they want to increase the price of the house? How do I know that for them they want to capture the memories? How do you know?
First thing, the creative industry is broad. There are creators, there are administrators within the creative industry. There are people who render service within the service industry. So as a self, under SCAP, you need to know what are you doing and who are you doing for? The market that you're trying to provide the service to, because business is not something that you do for fun. You are solving people's problems. So you must look, who has the problem that I have a solution to? So if I'm making a pottery, who needs a pottery? And selling it to them, it comes in two ways. There's the creation of it. So I can teach people to mold, which we do. Sometimes we get tourists coming from Kruger because they see our product in the space. They're like, oh, wow, you have this. And then they come into our workshop to mold the product. And to them, they say it helps.
Relieve anxiety.
It relieves things out, so they do come in and get their hands on the clay. And then there's the sales of the products. So now you must look into, there's different gates. In the service that you provide, there's different gates. You just have to figure out which gate you want to enter into the space with.
Okay.
So you can make a product, sell the product, or you can teach people the product. Or you can rent the product for a particular event company that just want to do a heritage event. Then they can display our pots there for a particular day, which we go collect. We didn't lose nothing. So you must look at different markets that you can service. It comes under SCAP.
Cool. So I want to go back then to where you were, because you were introducing another concept. When you're not introducing the concept, you're telling your life, right? But I'm listening to it in a leadership kind of construct, because you said you are now, things are selling, and then you start focusing on the selling part of the business and how to increase that. I know that in strategy language, they call that vertical integration, but there's something also called horizontal integration. When you say, I want to go up the ladder, the value chain, or across the value chain. And it sounded like you went across the value chain in this instance. So tell us what did you see that said, I want to also do the sales, focus on the sales part?
As a writer, I'm a writer. So I came to realize that success is not a coincidence. So every time I get a success, I need to analyze what really gave us that results. And how do you now maximize on that particular thing that gave us the breakthrough? So the introduction of a website gave us a breakthrough in Kruger National Park to sell. But now we look at it, how do we maximize on it? Now that we have it, how many other people don't have it? Then we started doing the research, and then we realized that a lot of people are doing different products, but they don't know how to sell it.
Yeah.
A lot of people in our villages, they're making key holders, they make wooden products, but they don't know what to sell. You find a guy who's completely talented and you look at their product, you even feel bad because they can't sell this thing. And they even lose hope now that actually I make these beautiful things, but I don't know what to sell. And we are not born to be crafters and sellers at the same time. There are people who can literally sell anything. Yes. Somebody can sell you your own pen.
Yes.
A pen that you have is your own and sell it back to you without you realize it. So we look at that. We look at the marketing side. We said it's a strength to have a marketing support. And then we said, how can we commercialize it and to make money out of it? How can we bring more people and market their product and make money out of it? Then we started to bring people to come sell into our online store and making money out of that. And at the same time, we're building a name within Kruger National Park and we're getting recommendation. I think at some point we even went to Namibia through the Department of Travel and Tourism under a program they call TIE. They call it grassroots level innovation because the online store, it was an innovation approach to respond to COVID-19 at that time. So they saw the need to come in and support us. And they gave us money to develop the online store and the support. They even took us to Namibia. We had a market in Namibia because now we're selling brand South Africa. Products that are made in South Africa, they're not there in Namibia. We went there to assess which shelf can we share the product that we make, and the product have stories behind.
But true, because it also includes other things there. I mean, this thing about funding. You're now talking about partnerships with Brand SA, partnership with this. How do you know who to contact for those kinds of things? Because some of us are sitting here and we're doing very nice things, but we don't know who's supposed to fund it.
It comes to strategy. You must have a strategy. You must first have a goal. But goals remain goals if you don't have a strategy to achieve them. Strategy comes in as a vehicle to achieve the goal using the most minimum resources to get to the same result. So that's where strategy comes into play.
It makes you lean.
So if you have strategy but you don't have goal, you will fail because you would have things that you have no use to. So first thing, you must have a goal to say, in this financial year, I want to find myself having trained 12 learners how to shoot photography. And also in this year, last year we had 12 clients that we serviced, but this year we need 25 clients. And then those are your goals. It's where you want to see yourself at. Then now you build the strategies. Who's going to support me in training these people? Which service seater, because their skills development, they are service seaters, which sits with a ridiculous amount of money, and they're willing to give people to train people. Then you start to look within the sector I am, which service seater can I go to? Within the space I am, which department can support me? There's CEDA, in every province there's different development agents. Like in Mpumalanga, there is Mpumalanga Development Agency, which funds as well in the creative industry. There's the Department of Sport, Art and Culture. It has a parallel body, an agency of its own, where it distributes funds as well, it's NEC. So you need to know the space that you are on. You need to study the space that you are on. Don't just be blindfolded and say, I'm gifted, I'm talented, and sit like that. But you need who's going to know you? So you must make yourself known and go to places and knock. The first place you go to, some of the places, they will redirect you. You might go into a different door only to find out that the door that you're looking for is next door.
Yeah.
For example, if you go to SETFA, looking for funds, they start to ask you which product are you doing. They automatically going to redirect you that, but I think you should start, you should approach NEC as well, and they give you even inside of the window open, because these are government organization and they work hand in hand and together.
Yeah.
So information is out there, but you need to walk the journey of going and knocking. Don't just sit.
Yeah.
In the first phase of my business, I remember I was sitting with my little sister and we were reflecting. And she said, you know, my brother, I never thought you'd break into this thing. When the first phase of you as an entrepreneur, you used to walk around with a Nike bag and a Palladium shoes that I bought when I was in Longmead. And those shoes, they lasted me 3 years. So I went and knocked into different offices until my shoes lost the print, the sole. So, but I never gave up. I went into different space and said, here is myself, this is what I do. Here's myself, this is what I do. Here's myself, this is what I do. At other places, you find that the service you provide, they're a little bit, it's not actually what they're looking for. So you need to also go sit on the board to say, okay, they said they need this, I have this. How do I reposition myself to go and knock back at the same door? Don't just lose hope and say, okay, I work this side. They said, actually, my work is not in the creative industry. It's more in the architectural side. Then I must go into the architectural side. And they said, in the architectural side, you must be qualified and have an accredited number and whatever. Then you are stuck in between. But you must find creative ways to survive within the industry.
So don't be a creative to create only. Be a creative only also to think about your business, right? So we are running out of time, right? So I want to shift the conversation, because with all of your businesses, it sounds like there's a lot, and you're continuously finding opportunities everywhere. Let's talk about leadership. What are the 3 lessons you've learned about leadership throughout the time that you've been doing this?
Through leadership is that 3 things that I've learned is that you lead people. You don't just decide on your own. You lead people. You must have an ear on the ground. Listen to people. That person in the corner whom just open a gate for you as you come into the workplace. Take a time to listen to them. And when you make decisions, you must consider each one of them, because they are actually your own contributing factor for you to succeed. Today I'm sitting here, but behind me there's a vast people that are supporting me. There is somebody who's just a gardener there in our workspace. And it is very important to listen to them, all the issues they have and how they see things. So you lead from consensus. You don't just force yourself into things, because otherwise you'll find yourself moving alone and leaving the rest of your body. So you are the head, but the head listens to the entire body and leads through consensus. So don't just force things to say, I'm the CEO. It's either this or nothing. Take time to listen to everybody's contribution.
And I know I said 3. You don't have to take 3. But is there another one you can share?
Another one is that be human. Be human.
But people will take advantage of you, dude. When
That's
you're human, I mean, like, you have staff there, they go like, he's nice.
that's the good part about life.
Okay.
Remember, we did not come here on earth only to have the best of moment and out. God brought us here to have a fair share of the bad and the good. So those who take advantage of you, there is a lesson they are partaking in your life, in restructuring and repositioning yourself. Otherwise, if they're not there to take advantage of you, you will be taken advantage of in a later phase of your life, and the result will be so huge. Because throughout of your life, nobody took advantage of you. Then when that moment comes, you're not prepared. But be human. If other people come to exploit you, it's fine, you learn the lesson. And then now you know how to go about what next not to do and what not to do. So be human. Be human.
I suppose we don't have a choice, right? Even if we try to be animals.
Yeah.
So let's close. So we have a number of creatives and participants on this program. What would be an important message you would like for them to take if anything. And you've also been on the High Impact Leadership Program, so you don't have to speak about it. But what is the closing message you want to give to them?
The closing message, I remember when I was at UJ, my first year, I think it was during the orientation week, the Vice Chancellor said to us, look on your right and look on your left.
Yes.
The people you are with, chances are you're going to graduate without.
Yes. Yes.
So during the class, during my class, there's so many people that were in that particular space, but not all of them are sitting in the seat where I am. So what I'm trying to bring is that there is a distinct difference between those who learn and practically do, and those who learn and do nothing.
Yes.
The information that you learn here.
Waiting for magic to happen. I have the information, so let's see.
Yeah. So this is what sets you apart from the different people who are there and they are creative and they're doing everything. So listen to what the facilitators are teaching you, but also personalize that into your business, because I believe others are actors, others are in the theater.
Yes.
Listen to it, make it personal about the journey that you are on, the objective that you're trying to reach, and practice it. Practice it. Some of the things that you've been taught, you're going to do it and not going to get the right result, but you need to flex consistently and persistently change here and there until you find your working set of tools that you're going to succeed with.
Yeah.
If you listen to all of this session and do nothing, you're definitely going to be nothing.
Yeah, and I know I said let's close there, but I had a very interesting question and I had forgotten it in the back of my mind. Because you seem to be doing a lot. Do you have fun? Is there fun? Where's the time for having fun, bro?
What I do, it's fun. For example, me sitting here, it's fun.
Yes, okay.
If you love what you're doing, me sitting here and speaking my story, it's fun. Yeah. If I move from the craft side and go attend a business meeting in the logistics side, it's fun because it's a space that is different from the other one. So fun, it's everywhere when you are doing what you love.
Yeah.
Fun, you will always find a space for fun. But if you are in the wrong field, you will find yourself once in a time abandoning what you are doing, going and seeking fun. Yeah. So it means you are in the wrong space to begin with. Yeah. So, and fun comes with me. I set goals for myself that I need to do ABCD in that particular company. I need to score that contract in that company. And every time I hit the results, I reward myself. Yeah. So there are things that I buy for myself to reward myself. And it keeps me going, setting more goals and going forward. For example, sometimes I tell myself, okay, if I apply for this contract, I get it, I'm going to upgrade my phone. Yeah. And if I don't get it, I'm never going to upgrade my phone. Yeah. Yeah. But the moment I apply for it and I get it and then I upgrade my phone, it also inspires me that, see, boy, I always have this a moment with self to sit and reflect with myself. So I tell myself, you see, boy, if you achieve, you get rewarded. Yeah, nice. and that's good to me because I'm honest with myself. And hence I also refer to myself as a boy. Yeah, because these are internal conversations I have with myself that, you see, boy, if we do this, if we sacrifice that one moment and not go in a Sabine and white shirts and soccer, and we are out here doing the research, these are the results. We're going to take you on a vacation. We're going to do this and do that and do that. Fantastic. So there is fun when you are in the right space and when you're doing what you love. Yeah. There is absolutely fun.
We can stay here for a while having these conversations, right? But Golden Mashoho, it's been good talking to you. It's good to see you 5 years or so after the program and sharing your story. We live through some of those examples that you guys are bringing. May you continue to add value to our people, and may our people continue to add value to you.
No, thank you. And I want to say that the success that I have is not mine alone. Yeah. You participated in it. Yeah. That contribution of knowledge that you brought into me, it really helped me to be who I am. So this must serve as an inspiration to keep on doing what you do. I know that there's so many people who need this information out there. So keep on doing. May I be an inspiration to say these are the results of what I do. So thank you.
Sure. I actually even forgot there were people here, right? So let's open this thing to the floor. Let's open to the participants in terms of